This is a 2014 Ford Explorer Sport, and we're going to put front brakes on it. They're different, I guess, different kinds of brake pads depending on your VIN number. So when you get your brake pads, go to the dealer and they'll type in your VIN number, and you can also do this online, and it'll pull up what pad you need. Apparently these are, I guess, heavy duty brakes with out painted calipers, and I'll show you the pads in a minute. The lug bolts are 19 millimeter, and I'm not going to go through jacking the car up and pulling the wheel off or anything like that, but once we get into the brakes, we'll do the brakes. And the reason I know we need them, I had new tires put on it yesterday and looked at the front brakes. This one has 61,000 miles on it. So we'll get started here when the car will be jacked up, and I'll show you the parts. So these are the brake pads. I bought these at Ford. They come with caliper clips, lubrication for there's a bolt that goes in the caliper, and then there's the anti-squeal that goes on these rubber anti-squeal pads. They say there's inside and outside pads, and I'm not sure which one is it, but you can tell the difference between right there and then right here on the pad itself. Again, like I said, I just happened. Oh, and the nice thing is you actually get a set of instructions. How good is that? Tells you where to put the grease on the noise shim and how to lube up the bolts. So we've got the tire off, and what we're going to do is we'll pull this bolt here, okay, and it actually has a name. We're going to pull the lower bolt, loosen the top bolt, and then we'll just flip the caliper up. I may have to squeeze the rotor, or excuse me, squeeze the caliper a little bit and pry it so that I can pull it up. The rotors itself on this particular car, you can, I checked them when we did the tires, but an easy way to do it, and probably not the the most correct way, but you can feel if you have a lip starting to develop on your rotor. But the best practice is to have your rotors turned whenever you change your brake pads. But like I said, this is I just got to get a couple thousand more miles out of these. Alright, we'll start doing that, and I'll try to show you that as we take it apart, and I'll show you some tools as well. So what I have is a 17 millimeter, and that's going to fit right here, and we'll take the 17 millimeters and we'll loosen the bottom. We're going to take the bottom one off and loosen the top, and then what we'll do is we'll flip the caliper assembly up and then get into the brake pads. And what I did do is I turned the tires to the right so that I could get better access to this, and not to go through the jacking of the car, but there's a location, there's arrows that point to where you can put the jack assembly, and then whenever you're working on a car, always have a secondary means. So I have a jack stand up under the front. So we've already loosened the top, and we're taking that bottom one off. Maybe I'll take it with your fingers at this point. So this is the bottom pin that came out, and there's a G on it, and that's actually referenced in the instructions. But we're going to set it aside on a paper towel, and we will keep it clean, and then we will lube it back up before we install it. So now let's see if we can see if that caliper will rotate up. It may not because of the yeah. So let's work on that. You may have to push it in, push the caliper in. So what I'm doing here is I I had a clamp, a regular C-clamp, but mine was too small to get across here. So I had a woodworking clamp and took a board to cross both pistons. Because if you push one piston, a lot of times what happens is the other piston just goes up. And then compressed the caliper. Okay. So here are the pads, and what we're doing is there's clips. So these clips, okay, right here, they come with the kit, and you have to go, this little piece right there is that little piece right there, okay? So there's inboard and outboard clips. So that would go on the bottom where that one's positioned. So this clip is going to go placed in right here when we take these pads out. Okay, so I'm going to pull the pads out. Go down, pull the pad out. Just slide it out. You have to pull, yeah. Okay, so you can see the clip right there. And by the way, this is the first time I've done this particular car. I've done brakes on other cars, but never on this one. So I'm learning it as well. So what we'll do is we'll pull those out, put the new ones in, and then over here, this is the grease. Don't do that yet. This is the grease that comes in the kit, and it's called Moly Coat, and that's used for the rubber noise reducing pad. So what we'll do is we're going to lube those up according to the instructions. It tells us, you know, inboard and outboard pads, how to put it on there, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to go ahead and snap the pads back in. Okay, and then I will show you another picture. Okay. Okay, so what we did is we set our two pads in here, and I'll show you on the other wheel, but all we did was slide the pads in, squeeze them together, okay, made sure our calipers were compressed, okay, and then guided the caliper by sliding it back down over, okay, and then getting it back over. Now, when we were sliding it down, you could feel it hit metal. It got about halfway down in here, and what happened was there's a let's see if I can show you right here on one of these pads. One of these on the inboard pad, okay, the inside of the caliper was actually touching that, so I just had to reach my hand in, and I just squeezed it with my fingers, just squeeze the caliper while it was up here, and squeeze it, and then it just slid right back down again. Okay, so now we have the bolt greased up, and my hands are clean, but what I'll do is we'll take the lube and I'll swirl it around, okay, and then that bolt goes back in right here, and we have this rubber grommet, and it's in there, and we will bolt her back up again, and then we'll show you where we are after that. All told, you know, being the first time, this took a little while. It took more time to find where to jack the car up, take the tire off. Once you're in there, and I'm hopeful that the next wheel will probably take about 15 minutes, but we've been in this one at least 30 minutes now. So stay tuned. There's the old pads. They really weren't as bad as I thought they were, but nonetheless, since we're in it, we're going to finish it up. So now what we'll do, you got to flip that to put it on tighten. We'll go ahead and we'll tighten these up in there. Get the top one tight a little bit first. You want to watch your hydraulic hoses. And I guess technically, you should take the top bolt out and re-lube it as well. So then what I'll do is I'll tighten these up. There is a torque spec on those, and you should use a torque wrench. So this is wheel number 2, and so far, including, or the left wheel, driver's wheel, we're in it about less than 10 minutes, and it's all done. We just got to now tighten the bolt up and put the wheel. Alright, so this is finishing tightening it up. Okay, and we'll put the wheel on. So I guess if there's any tips, make sure your calipers are compressed, and use a board, watch the rubber around it so you don't damage it. And the brake pads go on really easy. I would actually say that, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the easiest, this job was probably a 2. It was more difficult to find the jack point for the jack for this big car and get it jacked up. But we'll go ahead and we'll put the tire back on, and then one important thing to do when you change brakes is make sure you pump the brake pedal to get some pedal before you put your car in reverse, because otherwise you won't have one. I've done that before, and kind of panics you. So make sure you do that. And again, I think it's a, again, it was a simple job. All told, it probably took us about an hour and a half, but again, it took us more time just to find out what we were doing. The actual changing the parts was very simple. Thank you for watching, and good luck on changing your tires, or excuse me, changing your brake pads.